What is up, Coach Emma here, and welcome back to the Fit Habit Life podcast, where we cut through the noise, talk real health and fitness, sustainable fat loss, and habits that actually work. I still probably need to change that title, or the tagline, but that's okay. And I have a returned guest, Coach Laura, again. She is like my go-to for science-based muscle building and fat loss that is actually effective and does not put on excessive body fat. And so that's why I have her on today to talk about, is it actually realistic to build 5 pounds of muscle, like actual lean muscle tissue, in a month?
I am so excited to dig in this today, Emma, and thank you for having me back. I think I joked the last time I was on that we would be roommates by the time we did episode 3, so I do have to retract that because we're not living in the same state yet. But yeah, let's dig into it. So is it realistic to gain 5 pounds of muscle in a month? And I would say for the vast majority of the population, it is pretty unrealistic. We have big expectations about how much muscle we can gain in a month or 12 weeks. And to be honest, for most people, it takes years and years and years of muscle building.
Yes.
Truly, people will send me some inspo photos. I'm like, that is great, but you need about 12 to 15 pounds more of muscle, which is maybe 5 years of build and cut cycles where we're spending the majority of the time in a build. That is not something we're going to do in 3 months. It's not something we're going to do in 6 months. And it's not something we're going to do in a year.
Yep. It is basically unrealistic for probably most people listening to this to build even 2 pounds of muscle or more a month. Like that's hard, especially women. Like that's a lot of lean muscle tissue. And there are like podcasts that talk about how you can gain 5 pounds of muscle in a month, and to measure your like waist measurement, your bicep measurement, and all these other things. And it's like, that doesn't actually indicate, one, that you're actually building muscle. It's like, yeah, your waist grew and your muscles grew, but that could be from a lot of different things. Getting stronger is great, but that can happen when you get fatter too. So those are not great indicators of actually building muscle.
Yeah. I think the biggest misconception is the faster I gain, the more muscle I'm going to build. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we have research that goes, hey, there is just a limited amount of muscle that we can build per month. And so the higher or faster your rate of gain is, that just means that we are accruing more body fat. So when you're going, hey, I want to maximize the amount of muscle I'm going to build in a month, any faster than that maximum is just additional body fat. And some of the research that we have, especially from Alan Aragon, who's one of the leading researchers in the space, for anybody who's looking into how do I learn a little bit more about this but not have to pay thousands of dollars for a certificate, I highly recommend you pick up his book, Flexible Dieting. He really puts a lot of this stuff into layman's terms here. So when we think about what can you as a beginner, so like newbie gains, we've all heard about them, like how much muscle can I build in that first 3 to 6 months as a newbie? This is where if it's their first time lifting in a progressive overload fashion and you're actually eating enough calories and protein, like what is realistic? For men, those first 3 months, 2 pounds a month. That's pretty freaking awesome. Like 2 pounds of muscle a month in your first 3 to 6 months. Insane. Those are the teenage boys when they go on summer break for the first time, they hit puberty, they eat a bunch of food and they come back and they just look jacked. It's because they just hit that newbie gain phase and they just ate everything in sight. For ladies, we are not so lucky. So our newbie gains are maybe at most optimal, assuming that we're recovering well and we're eating well, 1.4-ish pounds a month. And then it peters off quite quickly after that. And if we think about, okay, 2 pounds a month, 1.4 pounds a month, Emma, how much of a surplus do you think we need to maximize those newbie gains? The most we could probably likely gain in a month?
100, 200 calories, maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That 2 pounds a month, that's a half a pound a week. That's a 250 calorie surplus for the men there. Not much. Mm-hmm. Not much at all, unfortunately. It's like a Pop-Tart, basically.
Yeah.
An extra Pop-Tart a day. And for the ladies, that 1.4 pounds a month, that's like a
2 Oreos, right?
2 Oreos. 2 Oreos and extra Oreos a day. So at that point, granted, that is muscle mass gain per month. One other thing that's important to take in consideration here is that when we are trying to optimize for muscle building, we need to make sure that our environment, we are for sure in a surplus. And unless you're in the newbie gains phase, it is highly likely that we have to accept that we're going to have a little bit of fat gain along with it, because your body isn't going to perfectly optimize for muscle storage all 20 to 30 days a month. So when we look at that, we're like, okay, so if I'm a beginner, if I'm gaining and I'm in truly newbie gains phase, if I'm gaining maybe 3.5 pounds a month, I know that I'm really optimizing, because if I gain 3 pounds and 2 of it's muscle, or 1.5 pounds is muscle, like that's a pretty big win in that book.
Oh,
and so
yeah.
optimizing for that surplus environment in those beginner phases, but that's the beginner phase. That is the most optimal muscle that you could probably build in a month outside of using some PEDs. And we look at that, it's not even close to 5 pounds, right? We are looking, 1.4 for the ladies, 2 pounds for the men. And those numbers do dip as we get older too, because our hormonal environment is not necessarily set up to gain muscle as rapidly as we approach perimenopause as it is when we are in our early 20s or late teens. And so there's a lot of factors in there. That is like best case scenario.
Yeah, and that doesn't take that. And the best case scenario means you're managing stress, you're getting adequate sleep, you're not overtraining, you're not you're hitting macro targets to a T, like 99% of the time, So most people, probably a pound a month is like really awesome.
Yes, 100%. And so as we kind of pull out that timeline of going, all right, so that early newbie gains phase, those first 3 to 6 months where we're looking at, again, 2 pounds for the men, 1.4 pounds for the women. The more after our first year of consistent training, women were like, it would be incredible. Just as you said, a pound a month. And like men, we're looking for, or sorry, men a pound a month, and ladies that like 0.3, 0.7, again in the perfect optimal environment. And unfortunately, I think we can say for our clients, like most of us are not in the most optimized environment.
Yeah, I'm not.
We're not. We've got some life stressors. We're trying to build businesses. We're doing a lot of other things that don't necessarily preclude to us having the most optimal environments. And to go along with that, is we really need to resistance train close to failure. And I will say that is the hardest part for my clients when they're getting started, is like, hey, we want to optimize muscle gain, and you're sending me form check videos. I'm like, you got like 12 reps in the tank, and you're telling me this is 3 RIR. So we have to work on getting good at being uncomfortable.
Yes.
So trying to optimize, like if we want to get that 2 pounds a month in that first 3 months, teaching your body how to push to a point that may be uncomfortable for you, especially if you did not grow up playing sports like Emma and I. If you grew up playing sports, you had a coach that probably at one point that you hated. I mean, I can think of my high school softball coach who was actually an incredible coach. But at the time, I was not happy about how hard I was getting pushed, and I felt like she just didn't like me and wanted me to do sprints. And hindsight 2020, it's like, oh no, she just taught me to have a little bit of grit. And if you haven't been taught to have that kind of grit when it comes to like pushing yourself physically, learning to do that in a progressive overload fashion in order to build muscle can be a lot more challenging. Not impossible, just takes a learning how to push yourself past that uncomfortable point.
Yes. Yeah. And that's a great point, because I biased, right? Like we were athletes. So I automatically assume, for the most part, now I don't, since I've been coaching for a while, but when I first started, I'm like, yeah, everybody knows like how to push intensity, right? No, most people don't, because most people haven't been pushed to the limit. So if you're not sending the signal to the body that it has to adapt, that extra weight gain is not going to be muscle tissue. It's going to be fat gain, because your body's like, okay, like I don't really need to build muscle right now, but I have extra calories, so what do I do with it? Mm-hmm. Right? Just store it as body fat. So that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because most clients don't, and most clients don't want to send form videos either. I've been talking about that a lot with my clients, and I'm like, look, this is important, because otherwise, like, you might not be gaining muscle. right? In a fat loss phase, it's not as important. I mean, obviously, you need to be intense enough to maintain muscle tissue, but you're not going to be building muscle tissue. So if the intensity isn't like 1 rep in reserve, probably going to be okay. Whereas for building muscle, that is critical. That needs to happen.
Yeah. And it one of the things, guys, is like, don't be afraid to post your videos. Right? There is no judgment here. If anything, for people who in my programming, we have a group forum where people post their videos, and I will always get a message from a community member going, "Oh, I saw your comments on Krista's video. I learned so much. I changed this." And they've never posted a video in their entire life, but people are like, "Oh, you're learning from the comments at the very least." I'm like, "Okay, please send me your video too, because I'm sure there's something that we can tweak with your setup." But when we start to optimize for training, again, that gets us closer to this 2 pounds a month rate of gain that we're talking about at that beginner phases, right? And as we look at maybe the most people we're talking to right now are probably not in their beginner phases. We're talking to the women who have been lifting for a year and they're scraping for that 1/4 pound to 3/4 pound muscle gain per month. We're talking to the men who are going, yeah, if I get like a 1/2 pound a month, I am jazzed because I have been in this training phase for much longer period of my time, and I'm just trying to do the best I can to optimize with the stress bucket of recovery that I have. So I think the one thing that I want people to take away, though, is that we're not saying it's impossible to gain 5 pounds a month, but for the vast majority of the population, it is highly unlikely that you have all of these things in place. A couple times, so I've got a couple places where I could say, hey, I think I've seen close to this, and teenage boy gone for the summer. Okay, so like they might as well be on PEDs because of that giant testosterone boost that they have in puberty. They go home, they're drinking a gallon of milk a day, they're just lifting and sleeping, and they have that perfect optimal recovery environment, and they're going with their like 3 friends and they're just crushing each other in the gym. At that point, you can't not build that much muscle. I doubt if there are any teenage boys listening to this podcast, so there's that one.
I do have a teenage boy client, so he might.
All right, well, you are in the 0.1%ers there.
Yeah, he's the only one. I don't coach any bodybuilders because that's kind of the other, category, like PEDs, performance enhancing drugs. So going on anabolic levels of hormones, taking weird stuff. I don't even know enough of the names of the things to list them, but basically just juicing, I guess, is the general term. That, like, the more testosterone you have, like, the more muscle that you'll build. So, yeah, bodybuilders that are using exogenous testosterone, they could probably put on 5 pounds of muscle in a month. But that's not most people, and that's not most people listening to this. So
I followed a colleague of mine who he and I follow similar principles on how we apply looking at rates of gain, etc. And he went through his own anabolics journey and was sharing it regularly and was just kind of going, look, hey, every rate of gain I've ever talked about, I threw in the trash when I started anabolics. Like I was gaining 6 to 7 pounds a month and getting leaner. And you're just like, okay, well, correct. It's a completely different Wild West when you have exogenous supplementation. Another scenario, though, that doesn't require exogenous supplementation is potentially the scenario of a former athlete. So I've had a couple of those, like ex-football players, where they had taken quite a bit of time off. They've lost a little bit of muscle, and then we quickly get their recovery and food environment right. And in those first couple months where you're like, oh, hey, like we're going to get our food right size, we're sleeping well, we're eating protein, and we're pushing in the gym again, they have seen some significant muscle gain and recomposition in those first couple months where they come back. Granted, this is tissue that their body already remembered. It's not brand new tissue. It is, I lost this muscle from when I, graduated from college and went to my 9-to-5 job and had a hard time getting back in the gym. And so this is the body remembering and going, hey, we had all this muscle tissue. Why don't we rebuild those fibers? And that's, again, a different scenario because it's not brand new tissue, but your body remembers, and the requirements to regain lost tissue are like a third of what you need to build new tissue. And so in those scenarios, you can definitely see some rapid muscle coming back on. But again, that's not a very large segment of the population, too. Like,
Yeah.
you're probably not somebody who had 20 pounds of muscle that you lost. It's possible. Yeah, you could have an injury or coming back from something like that. But that's a scenario in which I'd say for sure, if you, especially if you're a male and you have the right environment where you have had a very long layoff where you used to have this amount of muscle, maybe you had a Achilles surgery or knee surgery, and you go back into, now I've got the right recovery resources and the right diet and the right program, you could probably regain some of that very quickly. But very short-lived.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. And I guess another category would be like coming back from injury or something like that, right? Same thing, like can't train, build muscle back pretty quickly. So, but yeah, that's not most people. That's not most people listening to this. So probably doesn't apply to you is kind of the point of this episode. Like most people, 99% of the population, like could not build 5 pounds of muscle in a month. I just pulled that number out of thin air, so I don't know if that's accurate, but
yeah, I mean, I would agree with that generalization that it's unlikely. When I think about all the clients that have come through EPN, we've had over 600 men and women come in, and the examples I'm thinking of are like 4 people out of that 600 that I could say we might have done that, and they all fall under. I don't coach anybody on anabolics, so this is all the former athlete, or former athlete or coming out of a bad gut health, somebody with a lot of muscle, and we get gut health right, we correct sleep, and the rebound of, again, being able to build that muscle happens much more quickly. But that is by and large what's that I mean, that was 0.5% of the clients that I've seen.
Yeah. And again, it's just managing recovery, dialing in those things. But most people don't have severe gut issues or mold toxicity that they have to heal from in order to get those extra and you should be thankful that you don't, because that is not fun. But yeah, that's crazy, because yeah, that's like 1% probably of all the clients you've ever had that have come through your coaching practice have actually gained 5 pounds of muscle in a month.
Yeah. And that's a subjective measure. I mean, that's me looking at photos and measurements, because I think the important part here too, guys, is you may have heard, hey, go get an InBody once a month or go get a DEXA once a month. And unfortunately, those are just not the best metrics to track progress.
No, they are not.
At the individual level, DEXAs have a 3 to 5% error rate.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Think about that. So Emma, for you and me, that means that we could walk into a DEXA scan and it say that we have 7 pounds less of muscle and 7 pounds more body fat, and it would be within tolerance. Like, that is a huge swing. That's, again, guys, remember, let's go back to Emma and I are only building a 1/4 pound of muscle a month. That is 2 years worth of muscle building error rate. Not a 1 month.
That's crazy.
Not a 1 year. That is a 2 year worth of hard work variance. And I've had so many clients where I've just stopped. I actually did a DEXA and I was like, oh, I'm going to do a whole series about how I do the DEXAs every 6 months. And what I have just found is that the clients who do them, we will take night and day photos. Like, okay, we're obviously have dropped 5 to 8% of body fat. Measurements are dramatically changed. We're down 2 pant sizes. Like, we are just looking jacked on one side and different on the other. And the DEXA says, oh, you lost 7 pounds of muscle and you've gained 10 pounds of body fat. And we're just like,
no,
one of these things is not like the other. And I'm like, that's like $200 of scans that we should just throw in the trash. And it's just one of the, and so again, DEXAs, that's 3 to 5%. InBodies, 8 to 12%.
That's crazy. I mean, like, yeah, you can kind of measure trend lines, but what's better is like progress photos, weighing yourself daily, and maybe doing a waist measurement once a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I hate, and I did one time. I will never do it again. And it was like, I felt really good about how I was looking and my body. And it was like, you're 31% body fat. I'm like, I'm a failure. I should not be a coach. Like, all this stuff. I don't know if that was accurate. and I never will, and that's okay. But now I know like how inaccurate it is. We've talked about this before, but I hadn't actually like calculated like the pounds of muscle and the body fat percentage that it could be off by, and that's really crazy.
I mean, and I think the thing too is like you just brought up a good point. I felt like a failure because of what the DEXA scan said. But my question back to you, Emma, would you have done anything differently in the 2 years leading up to that DEXA scan than you already did to make progress?
Probably because I was not running proper programming at the time, let's just say.
Okay.
So
Okay.
like, yeah, probably, but like, I mean, I had made quite a bit of progress in the 5 years prior, I would say. So like, you know, I've that was a journey anyway. So now, knowing what I know now, I would have done something differently, but at the time, like, I did what I thought was the best thing to do.
Mhm. Okay, fair. That was probably a poor positioning because I didn't know what your answer was going to be. But where I come back to it, let me come back to like, let's go
Your
Emma from the
clients.
last year. Let's say
Yeah.
we did a scan it is May. We did last May and we're going to do May of 2026. And you look at this and you go, oh, I have apparently lost muscle and gained body fat. And we look at the last year and you go, well, my nutrition's been dialed. I've been working on some GI issues. I have followed a really good progressive overload program. I've set PRs. My circumference measurements are down. My progress photos look like this. The only thing that DEXA provided you was a bad body image. That's
Yep.
it.
Yep. And every client I've had who's done one, I'm like, why? And because they always come back upset,
Yep.
like I did. And so I'm like, I will never recommend that to literally anybody. I don't know what the point of it is. It's expensive, and it doesn't really give you much value that cheaper ways of measuring could. Because like I think progress photos are like the best way to measure progress, like over time, like seeing how your body composition, like you can visibly see the difference. The more I've like coached, that tends to help with the scale issues that a lot of women deal with. So
Progress photos and circumference measurements are the goat here.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, guys, if you want to be a person who looks jacked and leaner, you probably need to be a higher body weight than you actually think you need to be. 100%. I have a video that I've reposted to my Instagram a couple times over the years, and I put on trials last night, and I don't think it's going to make to my feed, but I did a consult call 3 years ago with somebody who was like, I want to look. They're 5'4". I'm 5'4.5" for everybody who does not know that I'm a short stack. Sometimes people on Instagram will be like, "Oh, you must be really tall," and I'm like, "No, this is the 0.5x zoom on my camera, so they can fit me in the frame for the videos." Anyways, I'm 5'4", and she's like, "I really want to be like have as much muscle as you, but like I I don't want to be like even more than 130 pounds because I think I'm just going to look so like fat." And I'm like, "I'm 5'4" and 145 pounds. You need to gain a lot more weight than you think you do, and that's kind of like a misconception. So women get so up in their head about the scale piece, and they're like, "Oh, they'll bail out of the build." So like we're talking about this 0.3 to 0.7 pounds of muscle per month. We have to be okay with gaining because the absolute number on the scale is irrelevant. It's the body composition that we're chasing. And so
Yes.
I tell my women every single year, your goal body weight gets higher. Because if we gain 6 pounds in our 5 to 6 month building season, and then we lose 6 pounds in fat loss, you are now a leaner version at the exact same body weight than you were when you started this process. Our measurements are down, our photos look tighter, and so every single year, your goal body weight gets higher because we want to retain all that lean muscle tissue we built. And that is a mind duck for so many clients because they're like, "Oh, wait, why would it be higher? Like I have this number from when I was a senior in high school in my head that I've been chasing." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, when you're a senior in high school, you had 15 pounds less muscle. So we're going to add 15 to that number. I don't care what that number was when you're a senior in high school." Also, you know, most of my female clients had I had significant body changes in college when hips came in and everything else kind of shifted around. I'm like, there's no way that I could be that senior year high school body weight period without even the muscle changes. So it's a mind duck, truly. But the takeaway here, guys, is that we need to build the
Yep.
muscle. I just wouldn't set the expectation that you can do it as fast as possible just by gaining as quickly as possible. We have rates of gain that we know are scientifically backed here. And we've even got overfeeding studies. So like one of the other things I'll reference here is we have, and Emma, I'll send you this link so you can put it in the show notes. But we've got a
Awesome.
great study where they compared a 5% calorie surplus to a 15% calorie surplus, which I don't necessarily love a percentage just because
It doesn't necessarily.
it doesn't scale infinitely. If you're eating
Yeah.
2,000 calories, 5% is a 100 calorie surplus. And if you're eating 3,000 calories, 5% is a
150.
150. Yeah. But or a 450. So anyways, net. Both the 5% group and the 15% group gained the exact same amount of muscle, plus or minus. But the 15% surplus group just gained a lot more excess body fat. And so when we look at them, like, okay, like, hey, I believe Helms did that study. But as we look at it, it's like, hey, that's why that lean muscle build we've talked about in our prior episodes together is like, hey, we're going to just gain just enough weight to maximize muscle and minimize body fat and go off of those guardrails that we know based on your training age and your current weight. And we'll pick a number that allows us to actually realistically build and maximize the muscle without gaining excess body fat. Some of the downsides, guys, if you decide to do the dreamer build anyways, you're like, well, maybe I'm going to be the exception. Maybe I am the person who's going to gain that 3 to 5 pounds a month, even if I'm not on anabolics, even if I'm not any of those other things Emma and I talked about. If we excessively and quickly gain body fat by putting ourselves into a dreamer build, that 300 to 500 calorie surplus above what we really ought to be at, we can have gut health issues, significant gut health issues. You can set yourself up for a new body fat set point. Like that's a really scary thing. So say you have always kind of just like, oh, I kind of sit nicely at 30% body fat as a female or 20% body fat as a male. If you rapidly gain weight and force it on, you can have your body protect a higher body fat percentage because you rapidly gain that weight. And that's not a place that you want to dig a hole out of, especially as we know for our female clients, especially those in perimenopause where it is tough enough as it is to go through a fat loss phase and take off 5 to 8 pounds at a time. You don't want to be defending a body weight that's higher you don't want your body trying to defend a higher body fat percentages because you went through a dreamer build.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's something. So at the conference I went to mid-April, maybe it was early April. I don't know. It was like a month ago. There was Brad Dieter. Have you heard of him? He's a researcher, but he owned a coaching company, and he talked about like weight loss, like set point theory. Basically, the gist is your body does not want to change. So if you do change it and you increase your weight via muscle, body fat, whatever, your body's going to want to stay the same. So the more weight that you gain, the harder it is to get rid of it. And your body's going to downregulate other processes to adapt to that lower caloric intake that you're trying to do. You have to be more intentional. Basically, what I'm saying is it's going to be way harder if you do a dreamer build to remove that extra body fat, because you'll probably put on body fat when you build muscle, but it shouldn't be that much. And that's why like progress photos, very important for this phase. Measurements, really important. Scale trends, really important. Because we want to make sure that it's not too quick. And if so, your coach should adjust it, or you should adjust it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And if anything, guys, go back and reference that episode Emma and I did a little while ago about why women should be building and like what
I think it was like
realistic
50 episodes ago-ish. Yeah.
Oh man, why women should build and figuring out like where your ideal rate of gain is, because we can accept a little bit of body fat, right? So if I just gave that reference of like, hey, maybe 6 pounds in 5 to 6 months. And if we go with those rates of gains that we talked about, well, at least 3-ish pounds of that is going to be about muscle. That's a great place to be. And if we can gain about 3 pounds of muscle, losing 3 pounds of body fat, fairly easy. But if you take the dreamer build approach and you're like, I'm going to gain 4 to 5 pounds a month because I think I can, and you gain 30 pounds in 6 months, that's going to be really hard to come back from gaining 3 to 4 pounds of muscle and 26 pounds of body fat. Really hard.
Yeah. Very, very difficult. And this is coming from someone who has like lost a lot of weight and put on a lot of weight and had to lose it again. So don't recommend.
Yeah, Emma, I don't think we ever got back in. I mean, I know you have individually on your episodes, but I had a similar scenario because my senior year of high school, I had a catastrophic injury where my jaw was wired,
Oh.
like sewn shut, and my eyelids were sewn shut, and so I had like a liquid diet for months. It's terrible. Actually, this is why I could never be my senior year of high school weight, because I think it was like 117 pounds. It was not healthy. Like I was just like
Wow.
and I was going through gut issues because of all these antibiotics and stuff. And the next year, and this is where I think my unconfirmed celiac kicked in, is because of that catastrophic injury. And I had a 55-pound weight swing in a year from that accident
Oh, wow.
to then going to my freshman year of college, and everything just like, and I wasn't even drinking that much because honestly I had too many gut issues. Like
Oh.
I was unfortunately not getting a freshman 15 from partying. I was getting a freshman 15 from gut issues, or freshman 40. I went from 117 to like 165 in
Wow.
a calendar year. It was a not fun year. But we think about like all those things that come along. I know that we've taken a big left turn here, but guys, when you hear Emma and I talk about these things and being a little, the point being is like, if you feel like we're being a little bit flippant of, oh, you can gain a few pounds of body fat and take it off. Like Emma and I have gone through that with you. You just might not have been here for that part of the journey when we did those things. So we understand and empathize like what it feels like to be in a body that you don't love, what it feels like to feel like you're uncontrollably gaining weight, and then how hard it is to get in the trenches to be like, how do I get this back off again? And so part of our goal here is to not have you go through the things that we went through.
Yep.
There.
Exactly. Well, we have more time, so I am curious. How did you like approach that? And I'm assuming that's when you really dug in to nutrition to try to figure out like, whoa, why is this happening? What is going on? Like, how do I reverse this?
Yes. So just to give like a 3-minute backstory is I got hit in the face with a softball on like not senior night, but like near senior night, and like shattered my orbital. Nearly like my entire eye socket has been rebuilt with coral and titanium.
That's crazy.
It was
I know you had like an injury. I didn't remember what it was. I did not know that that's how they rebuilt it.
Oh yeah, it's all like, it's a bunch of titanium plates going from like through my eyebrow here, and then my entire cheekbone is replaced.
Wow.
So because of that, I was like literally sneezing out bone shards for, I know, like just, it's gross. But my jaw was sewn shut because they went up through the mouth to do it, so I wouldn't have a scar on my cheek. I mean, I do have a scar on my cheek, but as big of one as they would need to put in the plate. And so in that time, my assumption is that that's what triggered my severe reactions to dairy and gluten, which I could tolerate dairy a little bit in high school. I knew I couldn't really like eat ice cream at that point, or like cheese was really a poor life decision, but I could tolerate a little bit yogurt. And then after that, I had 3 months of like whey shakes and just liquefied, just gross. The things that we tried to put in a blender, to be honest, to get food in. So it was not good. But what I didn't realize is coming out of this, because at that point, gluten wasn't even talked about. I had no idea gluten could be an issue 15 years ago. And that first 2 years of college was, for the first year was miserable because I'm like, I'm just gaining weight like crazy. I am feeling just so nauseous and sick all the time. And the second year, my sophomore year, I went through like every elimination diet I was on. I was vegan for an entire semester, which was maybe the worst semester of my life.
That sounds terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Guys, especially if you like follow me on Instagram, I do love my animal proteins. But I wanted to figure it out, right? I'm like, okay, well, plant-based things should help me. Well, plant-based things happen to be a lot of wheat-based things, which did not solve the problem. And then around that time was when Rob Wolf came out with Wired to Eat. And I was like, oh, let me try this like paleo gluten-free thing. And I went gluten-free. And at this point, I'd already realized, okay, dairy is no longer doing it for me. It was within 14 days that I was like, holy cow, I can think clearly again. I'm not
Wow.
wanting to puke after breakfast every morning. Like, it was a night and day differential. And like, since then, I've accidentally tested gluten a few more times, accidentally tested dairy a few more times. Usually about 2 to 3 times a year, I've accidentally eaten something and feel immediately light switch off worse. And that was when I recognized that, the entire bit of my misery and like gut issues and like why I was gaining all this weight, my freshman year was linked with how I was eating, was when I had considered changing my major to nutrition and dietetics. But I had like 14 credit hours left at that point to graduate. And they were like, oh, you could do that, but do you want to pay us for like 200 credit hours? And I was like,
No.
no. I'm going to graduate and I'm going to do all this stuff on the side. And that is, 14, 13 years ago where my self journey started. And then I went through NASM and a lot of other self-taught / certifications over the last over a decade now. But yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Win.
Yeah. And how long did it take you to get, well, I mean, we're both still building and cutting, like we're still, but how long did it take you to get to a more comfortable like place after that year of weight gain?
So that year, after I was able to swap more to a paleo type diet for a while, everything started to fall into place. And by that, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I did not really intentionally cut or bulk until I was in my late 20s.
Oh, wow.
Because at that point, I was still playing rugby for Clemson. I didn't have, there was just no, when you are running miles and miles a day, when you are doing all this activity, there is no room to be in a fat loss phase. But when my GI issues got better, body recomposition happened fairly rapidly over a 2-year span. And I wasn't unhappy with how I looked. I was like, oh yeah, I'd kind of like to look more muscular. Like I'm putting in a lot of effort, but I also didn't want to bother with the fat loss. I started tracking my food. Actually, I've got a post coming up. My very first day of my Fitness Pal from 2011.
Damn.
It's coming up. It's like May 29th or something is my like 15-year food tracking anniversary, which is wild. But
that's crazy.
I really didn't do very much fat loss or intentional muscle building phases. I'd say it probably happened a little bit more naturally until I was in my later 20s, mid 20s. I don't know how you differentiate like 26, 27, 28, whatever. And so, but because I just never stopped lifting and generally ate a lot of protein, because I do love a lot of animal protein, I just slowly gained a little bit of muscle at maintenance, very, very slowly. Maybe we should do an episode on what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm down.
But it wasn't until I switched over from going, okay, I'm like sort of maintaining, not necessarily intentionally, but just I'm too busy to do anything else, and hadn't really considered building or cutting until I had a terrible knee surgery injury where I had to take 6 months off. I couldn't walk for 3 months. And I was in an immobilizer.
Man.
And I know, guys, just like it's this bad. Guys, we've had 5 knee surgeries in this household in the last 5 years between myself and my dogs. Bowser has had one, Zelda's had 2, Crash, who came before Zelda, had 1, and I had 1. That was when I did my first build because I lost a lot of muscle, just like we were talking about before this. And I was like, uh-oh, like my legs went from like, oh, they're like decently muscular, I'm happy with how I look, to I had knee surgery and I couldn't walk, and my right leg that I had couldn't put weight bear for nearly 3 months turned into a, hot dogs or legs situation.
Yeah, I wore a cast for, like, I broke a thumb, and I don't know why. I had a full arm cast, like the full forearm, and it looked like really gross. Like it was just sickly, like just my forearm on one arm. Like, yes. I'm like, so I can't even imagine like a whole leg and the other one's like kind of all right. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was like to the point where I could almost wrap my like fingers around my quads, which, guys, that's about 6 inches of circumference measurements I lost, like from here to nearly almost here. And I was like, uh-oh, was like, oh, no, 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 no. So the minute that I was cleared for strength training, I was like, I'm going to do a build. Because at the point I had surgery in, I want to say February of that year. And it wasn't until July, August timeframe that I was back to 100%. And I was like, I am going to build muscle because I was very happy. It was like moderate with how I looked before that surgery. And then that's when I'm like, we're going to build muscle. And when I saw how much muscle that I put on or how much more rapidly physique changes happened than the decade plus that I just been sort of maintaining, I was like, what have I been doing this entire time? Because then I did a fat loss phase after that. And I was like, I ain't never going back to maintaining again. So short answer is I again, after those gut issues and everything sort of recomped in those like 2 to 3 years post that big 50-pound weight change, I didn't really do much. And then the last 5 years, the body composition changes have happened significantly more rapidly. And the ability to maintain said body composition changes because I've been building and doing targeted fat loss cycles have been that much easier. And so it's a really long answer to your question to say 2 to 3 years, but then also the last 5 years have made significant.
A huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I just wanted to give context for anybody listening because like we talked about before we started recording, like people will show us photos on either clients or like consults, like I want to look like this. But realistically, it's probably going to be 5 to 10 years of hard work to get to that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, some coaches might sell you a 6-month contract and say that they can do that in 6 months. They are lying if that is the case. So just beware. It takes a long time.
Yeah, a lot longer than you think. And especially if you are coming in with no history of how to push yourself in a progressive overload program.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Huge difference. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think this is going to be really helpful. Debunk the crap that's out there, which is the goal of the show, as I always say. So thank you again. Where can our listeners find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Laura Justine Savino. And from there, find
all
Elevated Pursuit Nutrition, the Practical Athlete, all the things that they're interested.
Cool. Yeah, I will tag that in the show notes and link that study as well. So thank you guys for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, if you can share it, rate the show, subscribe, that just helps us get in front of more people, which is the goal of the show. So chat with you guys later.